Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us today. And today we have Brian Lin, SVP Product Management Ad Sales at Univision. And we're really excited to talk about how we're opening up premium Spanish language media to tier three automotive dealers in a way that just has not been possible before. For a lot of you, you're probably familiar with Univision, but it might be a good idea, Brian, give a little background intro to yourself, and then just really, for those that may be less familiar with Univision, just give a background of what Univision is and how dealers should be thinking about the power of the network.
Sure, absolutely, Amol. Really nice to be sharing this with you. Brian Lin, Senior Vice President of Product at TelevisaUnivision. My role there is to put on the shelf products for our clients, for both brand advertisers as well as agencies, to be able to better reach and connect with Spanish language individuals as well as US Hispanics in general, as the largest Spanish language media company in the world. We're home to tons of soccer. Yeah, we have a large streaming app called VIX that we've launched a couple years ago and been growing through the roof.
Wow.
And we certainly have no stranger to linear television. So we have our TUDN Sports Network, we have Univision, Unimas, we have our novellas networks as well, and then also our radio station groups, right? So in many ways, TelevisaUnivision is the cornerstone to US Hispanics, especially when it comes within the US. And also such a large growing population, young and growing population in the US that truly matters when it comes to thinking about what the future of the US ends up looking like.
Yeah, absolutely. What are some ways now that with our partnership and our integration, how do dealers how can they access Televisa Univision's premium Spanish language digital CTV inventory through the Full Throttle and AMM platform?
Yeah, I think in the past that, without this integration in place, oftentimes there would be this, handshake agreement that happens, through folks on our ad sales team that are reaching out dealer to dealer and having these relationships. And that's all fantastic and great. But, today we're living in the world of AI, right? We look at everything that's happening across OpenAI to Anthropic and others, and we have to ask ourselves, how does technology evolve our ability to give access to inventory, premium Spanish language inventory and others, so that it makes it easier for a dealership to be able to reach that audience they're looking for, to provide that value, to leverage first-party data, right? And I think that's what our partnership with Full Throttle truly means, is our ability to bring to the table what we've known as our strength as the cornerstone of the Hispanic community, and make it much easier for the team at all of these tier three automotive dealerships to be able to access, right? Because oftentimes access becomes the issue, and if we don't have enough people in time, that's why we should leverage more technology.
Absolutely, it makes so much sense. And I was in a masterminds group the other week. Actually, we were talking about how self-service, transparency, real measurement actually matters so much more in local automotive today, more than ever. And the other thing that dealers are always navigating around is they want to make sure they're creating an OEM-aligned, brand safe path for dealers to activate what was often national quality media, but truly bring it the power of local with again the premium of inventory that's often transacted at a national level today. One of the things is, if you look at what's happening right now, again, dealers are under that pressure to prove performance. If I'm a dealer that has done is doing a lot of paid search, a lot of paid social, which probably describes a lot of dealers today, right? I mean, I've seen dealer budgets where search and social is sometimes 60 to 70% of the budget, which is significant,
Yeah.
right? And, so if I'm a dealer, and for our audience, how would you talk to the power of both the open internet and also like specifically the premium inventory that Univision is bringing to the table. How should I be thinking about share of wallet? How should I be thinking about Google Analytics? Talk to me like I'm a dealer.
Yeah. Well, I think first and foremost, we have to acknowledge that both search and social have done it really, really well, right?
Yeah,
I think that what search has brought over the years of, call it the heyday of Google and information, being able to capitalize on keyword search and being able to be top of a result for intent. I think, there's not a lot that can beat that, and certainly why Google's in its place that it is.
yeah,
We think about, if we look at social and how it's changed the world over the last decade, um, the thing that they've done best is that it's a closed ecosystem, right? From the get-go of how the content is curated through user-generated information, all the way through audiences, measurement, and those KPIs that dealers are looking for performance are in their platform when they're buying. And I think
right,
that that's one of the things that television struggled with over the past decade and a half, right? Television has always been a little bit of a fragmented industry, right? You have each of the disparate networks, and as we progressed and built our own streaming applications, it became
right,
inherently difficult for call it any advertiser, let alone a dealership, to be able to go to each of these publishing groups to be able to access that inventory in a
right,
streamlined fashion,
right, right,
and let alone measure its outcome, right? But now, kind of what we're doing here and some of the work that we've done with Full Throttle to be able to integrate our inventory there, to be able to leverage first-party data and to be able to connect that to outcomes. We're starting to wake up and actually be able to do some of the things that these platforms have and prove that, with CTV and, the onset of streaming television, that outcomes can, that television doesn't necessarily need to be just a top of the funnel
exactly,
avenue. We know that people love content, and that, you know, um, that this is going to continue to be the case. Like, if you look across the industry, there's more so than ever now being invested in media and content. And because people are consuming more than ever, it's just becoming incredibly fragmented. So we do need technology partners such as Full Throttle and others to be able to connect all that together and then be able to leverage first party to be able to do those activations as well as the measurement of all that.
absolutely. One of the things that I also often hear in the market, I think there's a lot of dealers in Hispanic markets, or portion of the market is Hispanic and Spanish speaking, and I think as a general trend, we've definitely seen that Hispanic consumers are driving a disproportionate amount of growth in auto sales, right?
Yeah.
So, talk to me if I'm a local dealer who has a presence or has a Hispanic market in my PMA, in my DMA, etc. But I'm not sure, like, should I be including a Hispanic specific strategy? How should I be doing that? Tell me a little bit about what we're seeing on a top level trend of how Hispanic consumers are driving the demand, and then how I should be thinking about including it in my media strategy.
Yeah, absolutely, Amol. I think that's a fantastic question because it truly pinpoints, I think, some of the challenges that at TelevisaUnivision we've faced over the last couple of years. Oftentimes when you think about it from a marketer's perspective, there's always this notion of who is my ideal customer? How do I look for that ideal customer? And this is just purely the way that the human mind works in order to make sure that we're reaching the targets that we're trying to reach. But we all know that within the US, we're a huge melting pot of different types of individuals, different type of ethnicities, different value systems that we're grown up in and built in. And I think that it's important as marketers to also recognize that that should play a role in our psyche. Um,
Yeah,
to kind of see where the rubber meets the road. We've seen a luxury automotive brand. They asked us to do an analysis of for this marketing campaign to look at what does their audience look like? They gave us a number of attributes, income range over, 150 to, 120 to 150, certain, characteristics around the age demographics, um, thinking that these are some of the qualifiers for them,
First.
right?
Right.
And it
Right.
makes sense for a luxury automotive, all right? You want to make sure they can afford it. That's something that, that resonates with them. But when we did the analysis of people who visited that brand's website and looked at the people that truly intended and actually looked at the the sales of specifically to that brand, we started to see that the actual for US Hispanics, that actually skewed much lower. Close
Really.
to almost half sometimes, 75K plus for luxury automotive, in many cases. And I remember the dealership asked us like, why? Like, what was the key driver there? And then when we looked at the psychographic data of how they answered questions about
Mhm.
the car represented an identity, right? And that was one of the key differences that we saw for, especially for US Hispanics.
Yeah.
Um, Automotive is such a key segment for US Hispanics because it is part of who they are representing themselves. It's not only a means of travel from one point A to another. It's a manifestation of who they're looking to be, who they want to show themselves as. Um, and I think those are some of the key differences that, and also insights that we want to be able to provide through our integration is be able to show that, when we're looking at the Hispanic consumer, oftentimes working closely with, media provider like ourselves,
Yeah.
give you insights like that to better prepare and better also guide you on the strategy of reaching that, in language and culture and on our networks.
Yeah, it makes a ton of sense, and I think the marketing strategy is such a big part of it. Dealers often depend on their agency or their certified provider, depending on if it's part of an OEM program, if it's a new car focus, right?
Yeah.
But they're depending on their marketing function, right? Again, agency, in-house, etc., to help provide the strategy. And I spend a lot of time talking with agencies in automotive, agencies outside of automotive, and there's essentially, four fundamentals that are always the ask, right? And I'll just go through the four of them. One is, can we make premium Spanish language media easier to buy, right? That's one thing.
Yeah.
Number two is, can we reduce complexity across planning, activation, and reporting, right? So we want to make it easier, we want to reduce complexity, and can we have, maybe most importantly, right? Is there a clear connection between the media investment and the outcomes? And I think what is so exciting, with this partnership and integration is that we are delivering a win across all three of those things, right? It's a win for the media owner, it's a win for dealers, and ultimately, it's a better experience for Hispanic shoppers and consumers. And when we provide a better customer and shopper experience, we know that everyone down the value chain wins, right? So again, it's making premium Spanish language easier to buy, it's reducing complexity, and it's creating clearer connection between the investment and the outcomes.
Yep. I couldn't agree more.
Yeah, for sure. Are there any other takeaways, you think, there's things that a dealer may not know about Univision or may not know about our integration that you want to share, to our listeners?
Yeah, look, I mean, I think it's a lot of what you said, right? We understand that Spanish language media oftentimes is difficult, right? Do I have my creative in Spanish? If I were to dub it is it, will it resonate? There are inherent complexities when it comes to that. But I think to your point, the things that we're doing here with our partnership truly makes it game changing because we are removing friction from the process. We are making it easier. And certainly the Spanish language component around premium inventory, that's now available for people to be able to activate on. So yeah, I mean, I think that we're truly excited for this partnership, that this is now available. Certainly the beginning of, I think, a great partnership to come, because there's certainly a lot more value beyond the content, like I mentioned, around the insights and the data that we can do. We've prided ourselves in market with a Spanish language household graph that we've built that reaches over 99% of US
Wow.
Hispanics.
Yeah.
Solves a lot of problem around data accuracy and data quality that our industry has, and certainly a drum that we continue to beat in market to say that, despite being in an advertising market, we should be demanding for better quality, because we want to make media dollars work harder for our clients,
Of
right?
course.
Those are dollars that a brand or an agency is spending toward working media. We want to make sure it works as hard as possible. So again, I think this is a fantastic start to our partnership and a win across the board, as you mentioned. And yeah, we're just eager to kick things off and make sure we start out the new year right.
Awesome. Thanks, Brian. I appreciate you being here with us today. And if for our listeners and viewers, if you are an advertiser, if you are a dealer, if you're an agency, if you're on an OEM program, which everyone is, some shape or form, and you're interested in having real access to premium Spanish language media, and you want transparency, performance, and OEM alignment, please reach out and we'll help you solve those problems.
Well, thank you for having me, Amal.
Thanks, Brian.